there! Ready for a wellness adventure? Let's explore the world of health together.
Have you ever wondered what you're really made of? I mean, on the most fundamental level, if you could zoom in past your skin, past your muscles, all the way down to the tiniest building block of your existence, what would you find? You'd find cells? Trillions of them? And today, we're going on a grand tour of these incredible microscopic cities that make you. Every single part of your body, from the tips of your toes to the thoughts firing in your brain, is built from cells. They're the smallest units of life, each one a bustling metropolis of activity. While a skin cell looks very different from a brain cell, they all share a basic blueprint, a core set of structures that allow them to live, work, and even reproduce. The National Institutes of Health emphasizes that the health of our cells is the foundation of our overall health. Every breath you take, every bite of food you digest, it all starts right here, at the cellular level. So, let's start our tour at the city limits, the plasma membrane. Think of this as the ultimate border control. It's an incredibly thin, flexible barrier that surrounds the entire cell. It's made of a double layer of fats called phospholipids. These molecules have a cool property. One end loves water, and the other end hates it. So, they arrange themselves with the water-loving heads facing out and the water-hating tails tucked inside, creating a natural barrier. But this isn't just a wall, it's a smart gate. It's selectively permeable. That means some things, like oxygen and carbon dioxide, can just drift right through. But other, more important cargo, like the sugar glucose or various ions, need a special pass. This is where proteins come in. Embedded in the membrane are all sorts of proteins acting as channels, carriers, and even security guards. Channel proteins form tiny tunnels for specific ions to flow through. Carrier proteins are more like a ferry service. They grab a molecule like glucose on one side and physically move it to the other. This membrane is also the cell's communication hub. Other proteins act as receptors, which are like satellite dishes waiting for signals. When a hormone or a neurotransmitter floats by and docks with its specific receptor, it kicks off a chain reaction inside the cell. This signal might tell the cell to start making a new protein, to divide, or to get to work. So, this thin, oily layer isn't just a boundary, it's a dynamic, intelligent interface that connects the cell to the wider world of your body. Now, let's pass through the border and enter the city itself. Welcome to the cytoplasm. This is everything inside the plasma membrane, except for the main control center. The cytoplasm is filled with a gel-like substance called cytosol. It's a rich, soupy mixture of water, salts, enzymes, and all sorts of other molecules. This is where a lot of the action happens. For instance, the very first steps of breaking down sugar for energy, a process called glycolysis, happens right here in the cytosol. But the cytoplasm isn't just a formless blob. It has a support structure, a skeleton, called the cytoskeleton. This is a network of tiny protein filaments that crisscross the cell, giving it shape and support. It's like a system of roads and railways, allowing little packages called vesicles and even entire organelles to be transported from one place to another. Without the cytoskeleton, the cell would just be a messy puddle. And at the heart of our cellular city, we find the main administrative building, the city hall, the nucleus. This is where the most important resident lives. Your DNA? The nucleus is the command center that houses all the genetic blueprints for building and running the entire cell. Your DNA is organized into structures called chromosomes, and access to it is very tightly controlled. The nucleus is surrounded by its own double membrane, the nuclear envelope, which has tiny gateways called nuclear pores. These pores act as checkpoints, allowing specific molecules like RNA to travel out into the cytoplasm while keeping the precious DNA safely inside. This strict control ensures that the cell only makes the proteins it needs when it needs them. It's a system of perfect regulation. So, how does the cell use these blueprints? The process starts in the nucleus, where a segment of DNA is copied into a messenger molecule called messenger RNA, or mRNA. This is like making a photocopy of a single recipe from a giant cookbook. This mRNA copy then leaves the nucleus through a nuclear pore and travels out into the bustling cytoplasm. Out in the cytoplasm, the mRNA finds a construction crew called a ribosome. Ribosomes are the protein factories of the cell. They read the instructions on the mRNA and assemble a protein, piece by piece, from building blocks called amino acids. Some ribosomes just float around freely in the cytosol, making proteins that will be used right there within the cell. Others are attached to a larger structure. And these are the ones that build proteins destined for export or for being embedded in the membranes. These attached ribosomes are found on the surface of a massive, winding network of membranes called the endoplasmic reticulum, or the parts of the covered in ribosomes are called the ruffa because they look bumpy under a microscope. This is where many newly made proteins are folded and modified. Think of it as the quality control and finishing department. There's also SMUSA, which doesn't have ribosomes. Its job is different. The smoother is involved in making lipids, or fats, and it also plays a crucial role in detoxification. In your liver cells, for example, the smoother is working overtime to break down harmful substances. Any disruption here can seriously mess with your body's metabolic balance. Once proteins are made and folded in the ER, they're not quite ready to ship out. They need to be sorted, packaged, and labeled for their final destination. This is the job of the Golgi apparatus. You can think of the Golgi as the cell's post office or shipping center. It receives proteins and lipids from the ER, modifies them further, and then packages them into little membrane-bound bubbles called vesicles. These vesicles are like labeled delivery trucks, each one programmed to travel to a specific location. Whether it's another organelle inside the cell or the plasma membrane for release outside the cell, this precise sorting system is vital. If proteins end up in the wrong place, it can lead to all sorts of problems and diseases. Meet the powerhouses of the cell, the mitochondria. These are incredible little organelles responsible for generating most of the cell's energy currency. It's like a city's power plant, burning fuel to keep the lights on everywhere else. Like your muscles and your brain are packed with thousands of mitochondria. When an organelle gets old and dysfunctional, or when the cell engulfs some outside debris, a lysosome will fuse with it and break it down into simple components that can be reused. It's a key to long-term survival. What's truly amazing is that this cellular city is not static. It's constantly adapting. If you start an endurance training program, and of course, not all cells are the same, they specialize. A red blood cell, for instance, throws out its nucleus to make more room for hemoglobin, the protein that carries oxygen. A muscle cell is crammed full of contractile proteins that allow it to generate force. These incredible differences all come down to which genes in the DNA are turned on or off, leading to a unique structure perfectly suited for a specific job. Each part has a job, and they all work together. The cell is a masterpiece of organization. Each part has a job, and they all work together in perfect harmony. It all begins in these tiny, incredible cities within us. Have you ever wondered where you get the energy to walk, think, or even just breathe? It all comes down to a tiny, powerful molecule inside your cells called ATP. Think of ATP, or adenosine triphosphate, as the cellular equivalent of a fully charged battery. Every single thing your body does, from flexing a muscle to sending a nerve signal, requires energy. And ATP is the molecule that delivers it on demand. Our bodies are incredible ATP factories, constantly producing and using it to keep us alive. This process starts with the food we eat. Carbohydrates, fats, and proteins are the raw fuel. Through digestion, they're broken down into smaller molecules like glucose, fatty acids, and amino acids. These molecules then travel through your bloodstream and enter your cells, ready to be converted into energy. While all three can be used, glucose and fatty acids are the star players most of the time. Let's start with glucose, which you get from carbs. The first step in breaking it down is a process called glycolysis. This happens right in the main part of the cell, the cytoplasm, and it's super fast. Best of all, it doesn't need any oxygen. During glycolysis, one glucose molecule is split into two smaller molecules called pyruvate. This generates a little bit of ATP, perfect for a quick burst of energy, like when you're sprinting for the bus. But glycolysis is just the warm-up act. For the main event, we need to go deeper into the cell. If oxygen is available, The pyruvate molecules produced during glycolysis move into the cell's powerhouses, the mitochondria. Here, things get really exciting. The pyruvate is converted into a molecule called acetyl-CoA, which then enters a complex series of reactions known as the citric acid cycle. The main job of this cycle isn't to make a lot of ATP directly, but to load up special electron-carrying molecules with high-energy electrons. Think of these carriers, like an 8-inch and FAD2, as tiny shuttle buses, picking up energy and taking it to the final stage. This final stage is where the magic really happens. It's called the electron transport chain, and it's located on the inner membrane of the mitochondria. The high-energy electrons are passed down the line of protein complexes, kind of like a bucket brigade. As they move, they release energy, which is used to pump protons across the membrane. This creates a powerful gradient, like water building up behind a dam. These protons then rush back through a special channel called ATP synthase, and this powerful flow drives the production of massive amounts of ATP. This entire process is called oxidative phosphorylation because it absolutely requires oxygen to work. Oxygen is the final acceptor at the end of the chain, clearing the way for more electrons to flow. This is why we need to breathe. Oxidative phosphorylation is incredibly efficient and produces way more ATP than glycolysis alone. But what happens when oxygen is in short supply, like during a really intense workout? Your cells can't run the electron transport chain efficiently. So, they rely more heavily on that fast, oxygen-free glycolysis. The pyruvate that can't enter the mitochondria gets converted into lactate. You might know this as lactic acid. That burning feeling in your muscles. That's a sign that your body is temporarily relying on this anaerobic or oxygen-free metabolism. Once you slow down and catch your breath, the lactate can be recycled and used for energy again. Now, let's talk about fats. Fatty acids are another major fuel source, especially for long-lasting low-intensity activities like a gentle hike or even just sitting here watching this video. Inside the mitochondria, fatty acids are broken down through a process called beta oxidation. They're chopped up into 2 carbon units that can enter the citric acid cycle, just like the ones from glucose. Fat is a fantastic energy source, packs a lot of punch, and provides sustained power. The only catch is that it's a bit slower to get going than glucose metabolism, and it strictly requires oxygen. And what about protein? While amino acids can be used for energy, it's not their primary job. Your body prefers to use them for building and repairing tissues, making enzymes, and other crucial structural roles. Using protein for fuel is like burning your house as furniture to stay warm. You only do it when other fuel sources, like carbohydrates and fats, are scarce, such as during prolonged fasting or extreme endurance events. One of the most amazing things about our cells is their ability to switch between these fuel sources. This is called metabolic flexibility. Just ate a plate of pasta. Your cells will prioritize using glucose, then fasting overnight, they'll switch over to burning more fat. This adaptability is key to maintaining a steady energy supply no matter what. In fact, research shows that having good metabolic flexibility is a hallmark of good health. Different parts of your body have different energy needs. Your muscles, for example, need huge amounts of ATP to contract. Your brain is an energy hog, constantly using ATP to fire neurons and maintain the electrical signals that allow you to think and feel. And your heart, which beats nonstop, relies almost entirely on that efficient, oxygen-dependent oxidative phosphorylation to keep pumping. Since energy production is so fundamental, keeping your mitochondria healthy is essential for the health of all your organs. Of course, no process is 100% clean. As the electron transport chain churns out ATP, it also creates some byproducts called reactive oxygen species, or free radicals. These are unstable molecules that can cause damage if they build up. Luckily, our cells have built-in antioxidant systems to neutralize them. But when the production of these free radicals outpaces our ability to clean them up, it can lead to something called oxidative stress, which is linked to cellular aging and various health issues. Ultimately, it all comes down to energy balance. When we take in more fuel than our cells need, the excess is stored, mainly as fat. When our energy demands are higher than our intake, our body taps into these stored reserves. This whole system is beautifully regulated by hormones like insulin. which helps store energy after a meal, and glucagon, which helps release it when we're fasting. And how does exercise fit in? When you work out, your muscle cells' demand for ATP skyrockets. They ramp up both glycolysis and oxidative phosphorylation to meet the need. If you exercise regularly, especially with endurance training like running or cycling, your body adapts. It actually builds more mitochondria in your muscle cells, making them more efficient at producing ATP. This is why you get fitter over time. Your capacity for sustained energy production increases. So, the next time you feel your heart beating or your muscles working, take a moment to appreciate the incredible microscopic worlds inside your cells. From the quick bursts of glycolysis to the marathon power of oxidative phosphorylation, a complex and coordinated dance is constantly turning the food you eat into the energy that powers your life. It's a non-stop process, ensuring every cell has the fuel it needs to keep you going. Have you ever wondered how your body knows when to grow, heal a cut, or even just feel hungry? It's not magic. It's an incredibly complex and beautiful conversation happening right now between trillions of your cells. Think of your body as a massive, bustling city. For this city to function, every single resident, every cell needs to communicate. They can't just do their own thing. Survival depends on teamwork, on coordinated communication that keeps everything running smoothly. This cellular chatter is the foundation of life as we know it. It's how cells coordinate to build tissues and organs, how they mount a defense when you get sick, and how they manage your body's energy budget. Without this constant flow of information, your body would be a chaotic collection of individual cells, not the wonderfully integrated system that it is. So, how do cells talk to each other? They use special messenger molecules. These can be hormones, like insulin, or neurotransmitters that your brain uses. Some of these signals are like long-distance phone calls, traveling all the way through your bloodstream to reach cells far away. This is called endocrine signaling. Others are more like passing a note to a neighbor, affecting only the cells right next door. That's paracrine signaling. And sometimes, a cell even talks to itself, sending a message that loops right back. That's autocrine signaling. Finally, in your nervous system, you have synaptic signaling, which is like a direct, super fast private message between neurons. But sending a message is only half the story. For a cell to get the message, it needs a mailbox, or what scientists call a receptor. A receptor is a protein that is perfectly shaped to catch one specific type of signaling molecule. It's like a lock and key. A cell will only respond to a signal if it has the right keyhole, the right receptor. This is why a hormone like insulin tells your muscle and liver cells to take up sugar. But it doesn't affect other cells that don't have insulin receptors. This specificity is crucial for keeping order in the body. These receptors can be on the outside of the cell, on its membrane, or they can be found inside the cell. Receptors on the surface catch molecules that can't easily get inside. When a signal molecule binds to one of these external receptors, it doesn't just stop there. It kicks off a chain reaction inside the cell, a process called signal transduction. Think of it like ringing a doorbell. You press a button on the outside, and a whole series of events happens inside to alert the occupants. This often involves tiny helpers called secondary messengers, which amplify the original signal. This means just a tiny amount of a hormone can trigger a massive response inside the cell. It's incredibly efficient. On the other hand, some signaling molecules, like steroid hormones, are slippery enough to pass right through the cell's outer wall. They find their receptors waiting inside, either in the main part of the cell or directly in the nucleus, the cell's command center. Once this hormone-receptor pair gets together, it can directly influence the cell's DNA, telling it which genes to turn on or off. This type of signaling is slower to start, but its effects tend to last much longer because it's fundamentally changing the proteins the cell produces. One of the most amazing parts of this whole process is signal amplification. A single signaling molecule binding to a single receptor can activate hundreds or even thousands of molecules inside the cell. Each of those can then activate even more, creating a cascade that magnifies the original message enormously. This lets your cells be incredibly sensitive, responding to even the faintest signals, but with great power comes great responsibility. This amplification has to be tightly controlled. Just as important as turning a signal on is knowing when to turn it off. Once a job is done, the cell needs to hit the brakes. Special enzymes swoop in to break down the signaling molecules. The receptors might get pulled inside the cell to take a break, and the secondary messengers are cleared away. If this shutdown process fails, it can lead to serious problems. For instance, if a growth signal gets stuck in the on position, it can lead to uncontrolled cell division. Let's look at a real-world example. Managing your blood sugar. When you eat a meal with carbs, your blood glucose level rises. Special cells in your pancreas detect this and release the hormone insulin into your bloodstream. Insulin travels to your muscle and liver cells and binds to their receptors. This rings the doorbell, triggering the internal cascade that tells the cells to open their gates and let glucose in for energy or storage. As your blood sugar drops back to normal, your pancreas stops releasing insulin. The signal is terminated. This beautiful feedback loop keeps your energy levels stable. Or think about the speed of your nervous system. When you touch something hot, an electrical signal zips along a nerve. At the end of that nerve, it releases neurotransmitters that jump across a tiny gap to the next nerve cell, telling it to fire. This happens in thousandths of a second, allowing for the lightning-fast reflexes that pull your hand away from danger. Your immune system is another master of communication. When you get an infection, immune cells release signals called cytokines. These are like emergency flares, recruiting other immune cells to the site of the battle to fight off the invaders. But here, too, balance is key. If this cytokine signal becomes too strong, it can lead to excessive inflammation. Sometimes, cells don't even need to send messengers through open space. They can communicate through direct contact. Some cells are connected by tiny channels called gap junctions, which let small molecules and electrical signals pass directly from one cell to its neighbor. This is how your heart muscle cells are able to contract in perfect synchrony, creating a coordinated heartbeat. And here's something fascinating. Cells can change how well they listen. If a cell is bombarded with the same signal over and over, it might start to ignore it by reducing the number of its receptors. This is called downregulation, and it's a key part of what happens in insulin resistance, where cells become less responsive to insulin. On the flip side, if a signal is very weak or rare, a cell might build more receptors to become extra sensitive, a process called upregulation. Cells are constantly juggling multiple messages at once. A single cell might receive a hormonal signal, a neural signal, and a local signal from a neighbor all at the same time. It has to integrate all this information to make the right decision. This ensures its response fits the bigger picture of what's happening in your entire body. This cellular communication is the director of growth and repair. When you get a cut, signaling molecules orchestrate the entire healing process, telling cells to divide, move into place, and produce collagen to rebuild the tissue. And when this communication network breaks down, the consequences can be devastating. Many cancers are caused by mutations that disrupt these signaling pathways, causing cells to grow and divide without any control. Even what you eat directly impacts this cellular conversation. Your blood sugar levels affect insulin signaling. The types of fats you eat can inflammation signals. Vitamins and minerals are essential components of the machinery that makes these signaling pathways work. So, in the end, the health of your entire body relies on this intricate and perfectly balanced system of communication. It's a constant dialogue of signals, receptors, and internal pathways that transmit, amplify, and regulate information. From long-distance hormonal messages to rapid-fire neural transmissions, this communication ensures that all your trillions of cells work together as one cohesive, functioning whole. It's a silent, invisible symphony that plays out every second of your life, keeping you healthy and in balance. Thanks so much for watching. If you found this journey into the world of our cells fascinating, don't forget to like this video and subscribe for more deep dives into the science of you. See you next time.
Thanks for watching. Hope you liked it.